last month. Home sales and prices in this area hit record highs. The median sales price for a single-family home is now at $524,000. But with mortgage rates on the rise, up around 1 percentage point since October, could this be a bubble that's about to burst? And what does it mean for those looking to buy, sell, or even rent in the future? Joining me are Douglas Quattrochi, Executive Director of the group Mass Landlords, and David Lilly, a real estate broker with RE/MAX Destiny Cambridge. David, Doug, thank you for being here. Let's start with the interest rate issue. What are the implications of, I was going to say spiking, maybe that's too dramatic, but they're going up fast. This rise in interest rates for the Boston area market, what does it mean?
So I think that it's the impetus for people to move forward to buy quicker. I think they've been sitting on the sidelines for a long time. With quantitative easing, people have been lulled into a false sense of security because interest rates have stayed very, very low for a very long time. So I think that this is now starting to drive people. I mean, I've sold 5 houses in the last 3 weeks, and that's quite a lot for this time of year.
Normally, higher interest rates and mortgage rates would tend to decrease house prices, but in Massachusetts, Greater Boston especially, we don't have a lot of inventory, right? Down 9% from a year ago, according to Lawrence Yun and National Association of Realtors.
Just so I'm clear on this, because economics have never been my strong suit, rising interest rates decrease prices if there's excess inventory. Did I get that right?
Right, but we're tight here.
Yeah, the inventory is very, very low right now. I mean, it's lower than it's been in probably about 12 years. The prices have increased year over year for November by as much as 48% in and around the Boston area, which is unprecedented. In single-family homes especially, I mean, the prices have gone up as much as 70%.
Let me ask you about specifically the luxury high-end inventory. As you guys know, Simon Properties pulled the plug on a plan to develop this long-awaited, I think, 52-story luxury unit in Copley Square. Last fall, they said that labor was very expensive, and also that they thought the market might be saturated. The Boston Foundation has said there's going to be a drop in permitting for new housing construction in eastern Massachusetts, largely because of diminished or softened luxury demand. Is the luxury demand still there, or is that ebbing a little bit?
I still believe it's there. I mean, a lot of these projects are just coming out of the ground now, and 50% of them are under agreement already. So I think that the interest rates may have some kind of an impact on that. I think it's the supply that's coming on the market is incredible right now. I mean, there's 5,000 new units that have come on the market in the last couple of years, and they're anticipating that we'll have another 30,000 in the next 10 years.
The hard thing with luxury is when you build something new, you want to market it as luxury to get the highest rent you can, but there's a huge shortage of smaller and more affordable apartments, especially single bedrooms.
Agreed. I think what I'm seeing now in a lot of these municipalities, Cambridge, Somerville, Boston, as part of the development process in these areas, they're adding an affordable component, which is as much as 20% of the developable land that they will allow them to do, which you and I have discussed in the past.
You and I chatted last. David and I talked for a story we were doing on the implications of the Green Line extension in Somerville, and I remember that Somerville was pushing to ramp up the affordable development on, the affordable requirement on developers. Did they follow through on that?
They have, yeah. Yeah. It went to 15%. It didn't go to 20%. But they had originally said that they would go to 20, but they're going to 15. But this is good because it keeps diversity in these communities. And so it's important that we have this affordable component. So I applaud them for this.
Doug, let me ask you more about the affordability question. You mentioned the dearth of sort of more modest units.
Right.
I was looking back at a study that Redfin did in 2016, which they found that Boston was the tightest market for low and middle income people, with the exception, I think, of like 4 markets in California, including San Francisco. What are the implications if the Boston area becomes someplace that lower and middle income people just can't afford to live?
Well, the implication is people won't live here. I mean, the Senate Commission, Special Commission on Housing did a report last year that said we need to have hundreds of thousands of units to keep the young tech-type workers that we want to have in this area. And we are, I know you said a couple California markets might be hotter, but my understanding is we're the 3rd most expensive city in the country, short of after San Francisco and New York. So we really need a lot more housing for people who are getting started.
What happened in response to that call from the Senate to create hundreds of thousands of new units? Is that anywhere close to?
Well, we talked about zoning reform a lot. I think that's really the most important thing we could be working on. It's one thing to push affordability on developers. It would be another thing entirely to allow landlords and other small property owners to subdivide or create safe basement and attic spaces.
Well, that's happening in Cambridge right now. They've approved that. They're allowing people to make accessory apartments in the attics and in the basements. So that's going to help a lot.
Marty Walsh, the mayor of Boston, has said that he wants to, in part, build his way out of the challenge that affordable housing poses, or a dearth of affordable housing. He said he wants 53,000 new units by 2030. Do you think that, A, he's going to get there? It's a pretty ambitious goal to my ears. And B, is that going to make a difference in terms of providing opportunities for everyone, whatever their income point may be, to find housing in this area, in Boston in particular?
Well, I think that's definitely an important goal to have, to create a lot of new housing. But like I said, when you build new housing and it's newly renovated, you want to market it as luxury. So you really want to look at the smaller end of the spectrum and see what you can do, not just within Boston with zoning, but also statewide with all our 300-plus municipalities. Can we make it more affordable everywhere so that people can live close to Boston?
David, I know that there is talk that a lot of foreign speculators are coming into the Boston area market and picking up super high-end properties, maybe even some more moderate properties. I've heard tales of homes here in our neighborhood in Brighton that might not necessarily look flashy, but that are being purchased as soon as they're listed. Is that something you're seeing in Somerville?
Yeah, I'm seeing an awful lot of income producing properties being sold to people from the Pacific Rim, China. Is a big influx of buyers from that now. I mean, of the 5 properties that I sold in the last 3 weeks, all of them were Chinese buyers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a pretty telling fact right there.
Mass Landlords has connections in Worcester and Springfield, and in Worcester, realtors have seen that local investors have been priced out of Boston entirely, and they're flowing over Worcester and further points
To Worcester,
west.
really?
Absolutely.
See, to me, that sounds sort of ominous when it comes to having a market where everyone can live. I mean, if the foreign investors are going to Worcester...
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
There have been a series of neighborhoods in Boston and in the suburbs that we've thought of as hot in the last couple of years. The Seaport District, for one, Somerville, where you and I last chatted. What are the hot markets in the city of Boston and in the surrounding areas heading into 2017?
So for me, I see Boston. It starts in Boston, Cambridge, Somerville. I'm seeing Medford is really expanding now. I mean, square footage price-wise, Cambridge is $750 to $850 a square foot. Somerville is $550 to $650 a square foot. Medford is $450 to $550 a square foot. Malden is probably $350 to $450 a square foot. So you can see it dropping incrementally as you get farther away. Boston now, in the high end, as you were saying, we're seeing over $1,000 a square foot for the high-end residential market.
Doug, you get the last word. Oh, sorry, David gets the penultimate word.
Well, the last part was just that there are Chinese buyers buying blocks of these high-end residential, like Millennium Towers, where they will buy 20 and 30 units.
Yeah. So, all right, any other neighborhoods to keep an eye on?
In terms of rent levels, Malden.
Really?
Highest increase in rents, yeah.
You know, Malden is where my wife and I got our first place right when we got married.
Really?
It sounds like we might not be able to do that today. All right, Doug Quattrochi, David Lilly, thank you both.